If you want to be a serious luxury car player in this day and age, you've got to have a mid-sized SUV, like the Lexus NX, BMW X3, and the Range Rover Evoque. But one of the biggest luxury names has been missing from this segment until now. Meet the all-new Mercedes-Benz GLC. Mercedes actually had a mid-sized SUV nearly a decade ago, but the bean counters decided not to build it in right-hand drive, so Australia missed out. Now the GLC finally fills that hole in Benz's lineup, between the compact GLA and the family-sized GLE. We've assembled three rivals to find out if the GLC has what it takes to compete in this market. We have opted for the petrol-powered models, each motivated by a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. In case you're wondering, the Audi Q5 and Land Rover Discovery Sport are missing after losing our last diesel-powered comparison to the X3. Instead, we have the newer Lexus NX200T and the just updated 2016 Range Rover Evoque SI4 to compete against the X3, xDrive 28i and the GLC 250. The X3 won our last comparison with good reason. This is a good all-round luxury SUV. Obviously we've swapped the diesel for a petrol engine, and this xDrive 28i is the most powerful of these four cars we're testing. Officially the engine is good for 180 kilowatts and 350 newton meters and sips to 7.3 litres per 100k, just a fraction more than the GLC. But even though it's got the most power, torque is pretty much the same across all four of these cars. They're all within about 10 newton meters of each other. So that advantage that it has on paper doesn't really translate to the road. They all feel pretty solid and pretty swift for SUVs. Where the X3 does feel a little different though is how it drives. It feels a bit sportier than the rest. It's got really good road holding, the steering's quite precise for an SUV. Overall it has that typical BMW, ultimate driving machine character to it. Unfortunately, the trade-off for that is ride quality, and the X3 feels a lot busier and less comfortable than the other three cars here. It tends to jitter over bumps, which isn't really what you expect in a luxury SUV. If looking good is the most important thing to you, then the Evoque is hands down the winner in this category. It's got a style and a sophistication that the others in this group just can't match. But that also carries over to how it drives. It's a really quiet and comfortable machine to be in. The cabin is really well insulated both from noise and also the bumps. The suspension's really comfortable and compliant. Despite that though, this isn't a car that's afraid to get its nice alloy wheels dirty. If I was going to take any of these four off-road, the Evoque would be the one I'd pick, because after all, this is a Land Rover. It may be a major update this year, but the 2016 Evoque is still based on the old Freelander platform, and that means it's got some serious off-road capability built into it. It also gets hill descent control and Land Rover's terrain response system, so it is actually a pretty capable beast. Having said all that, it's also a really fun car to drive on-road. This 2-litre turbocharged engine has got plenty of grunt, so at times it actually feels a little bit like a hot hatch. The Evoque is endowed with 177 kilowatts and 340 newton meters, which makes it the second most powerful, but with the least amount of pulling power. It also uses 7.8 litres per 100 k's, which is the second highest of this group. Unfortunately, the transmission is a little bit of a weak link in the chain. This 9-speed auto isn't the best calibrated unit we've ever driven. It can get confused sometimes with so many ratios to choose from, and you'll find yourself at times waiting for it to catch up to what you want it to do. So, stylish, sophisticated and pretty rugged. Overall, the Evoque makes a pretty compelling package. The NX wins points up front on value. This F-Sport model we're testing here is the cheapest of this quartet, and by some margin, around $4,000. And it doesn't skimp on gear. For instance, it's got little luxuries that the others don't have, like heated and ventilated seats, which is a nice luxury touch in this part of the market. But it also feels like the cheapest car though in some regards, particularly the interior, which just doesn't have the fit and finish you find in the other three. There's some harder plastics, and the presentation is, well, to be honest, it's a little busy, is probably the nicest way to put it. There's lots of stuff going on and a couple of things that just look a little bit like the screen, that look a little bit tacked on at the end, which is a bit unfortunate because that always lets down a pretty good car and a pretty comfortable interior. There are some other positives though, like the engine. The 200T obviously has the Japanese brand's new 2-litre turbo. And it's a pretty punchy unit and it's well matched with this 6-speed transmission most of the time. The 200T punches out a respectable 175 kilowatts, just short of the Evoque and the X3, and 350 Nm of torque. However, fuel consumption is the highest here at 7.9 litres per 100 k's. It's not the most dynamic of this quartet though. The steering is pretty good, but the 10 feels like it sort of runs out of grip earlier than the others. But on the plus side, it's got a pretty comfortable and compliant ride, which makes it a comfortable car to be in and pretty easy to live with around town. Perhaps the best way to sum up the GLC is to say it's hard to find any significant weakness in its armour, because it's based on the same underpinnings as the C-Class sedan, which was the 2014 Drive Car of the Year, so it's starting from a really solid foundation. So the GLC possesses a lot of those same attributes that makes the C-Class such a good luxury sedan. It's got a really comfortable and compliant ride. The engine, this 2-litre turbo, is a good thing, but this new 9-speed automatic that it's paired to is excellent. It is probably the best 9-speed auto I've driven so far. The gearbox helps get the best out of the engine, which with 155 kilowatts and 350 Nm makes the GLC the least powerful of these four, but it is also the most efficient, using just 7.2 litres per 100 k's. Of course, being an SUV, it also has some plus points that you don't get in the C-Class. It's got a longer, taller roofline, therefore the cabin is more spacious, there's plenty of headroom, and in the back seat and the boot there's more space. So really, there isn't a major weakness with this car, and that is very bad news for the competition. On the surface, all four of these SUVs are appealing and hard to split. Power, torque and efficiency are all pretty close on paper, and they are similar in size and equipment. But look closer and one of them manages to do most things just that little bit better, and that makes it the obvious winner. The GLC may have arrived late, but it's a cut above the competition, so it has all the ingredients to make up for lost time.